Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how houses have become unobtainable, right? Most people you're going to find now in the United States simply are just not going to be able to buy a house. Not only can they not afford the payments with the high interest rate, but they're certainly not going to be able to afford an expensive home with the price level that they are at and continuing to go up. But most of all, they are going to find that the wages that they earn are just not going to be there. Like, it's too low of a wages, too high of a price, too expensive of interest rates. The houses are just now unobtainable for most people. And it's funny, as I was talking with some other coworkers about this, one of the guys I work with says, yeah, the major problem that you're facing right now is that everybody has Airbnbs or second or third homes. And I thought to myself, that's right. That's exactly right. The property owners have the property, and everybody else is going to suffer the consequences of the separation between the rich and the poor. This is not something that should be a surprise. It's not anybody that you can blame, unless you want to blame this guy, all right, Richard Cantillon, who wrote an essay hundreds of years ago describing this exact thing within the economy. That as the manufacturing of good quality products distributed throughout the world, brought in massive amounts of money into this nation, raised our standard of living, creating a situation in which that the high standard of living and the move into luxuries started destroying the manufacturing base of this country and started driving in ever increasing amounts of foreign production. It was at that time that we noticed and had very little ability to change the circumstances. But the separation between the rich and the poor started to grow so obvious that people started questioning how come it is that our regular average wages no longer is capable of buying a house? How come we can no longer have that one income produce enough money for wife and kids and retirement and vacations and college and cars and all the stuff? Like one income could do all that. It doesn't happen anymore. In fact, two incomes don't cut it. You're finding that most people who are now an average American has to come up with not just 20%, but ever increasing amounts of down payment, not to get the loan, right? To say, hey, you need to qualify for this loan. It's not just 20% to try and say, hey, this is what you need. You need more than that so that you can bring the principal down far enough for your wages for your wages to be able to be making that payment, because the interest rates are so high. Ultimately, they're priced out. They're just like, there's no position in which that they are now able to acquire a home. It's like unobtainable, like just no chance in the world. Right? And understanding that this is the situation, like there's no changing it. You can't fix this problem. The problem that we were facing needed to be fixed literally decades and decades ago. Back when we were severing ourselves from the gold standard, we should have recognized why it was taking place at the time. That move into luxurious items, driving out the domestic manufacturers and driving in ever increasing amounts of foreign production. That was the moment. Right? But because people did not want to feel the pain and suffering of depressionary effects, what ended up happening was the situation we are now facing today, with ever increasing amounts of separation between the rich and the poor. And that the property owners are the obvious separation, right? If you are a property owner, you will be on the other side of the wedge. It's just, there's no other way of really looking at it. You could be the capitalist. You could be the capitalist who has a lot of, a big stock portfolio with dividend paying stocks, or maybe business owners or something like that. And you don't necessarily have to be a property owner, but property ownership is by far the number one way that most people would find their way into wealth, to find themselves on the other side of that wedge. And when you find that it's becoming ever increasingly difficult to try and do that, you're going to have to get very creative on how it is that you're going to become that property owner or become the capitalist. One of the two, right? You have one of two choices. Most people end up going towards property ownership because that's the easiest one for most people to try and acquire, because it takes all the guesswork out of it. Just go and try and acquire a home. tunnel vision towards it. And since it's become very difficult nowadays in order to acquire that down payment due to the fact that the wages just don't keep up, when you have this situation now occurring, you have to become very creative on how it is that you are going to obtain that property. You have to team up with other people. You have to house hack. You have to figure it out that there is not going to be the traditional method for you to try and obtain that home. It's not going to work that way anymore. And it's better to recognize it for what it is than to try and think of there's going to be a way of fixing this, or that there's going to be a system that is going to align itself that will then provide you with the ability to get a home. It doesn't work like that. It's not going to work like that. Understanding it from this guy's point of view will give you a much clearer understanding of why we are sitting in the position we are in. Knowing that there's really no way of changing that unless you have a complete collapse of the entire system in order to provide that condition in which that everybody is on an equal playing field trying to take advantage of the situation that they are in. It's not going to work like that, right? I mean, a complete utter collapse of the system means you're not going to go and get a loan. It means that you have to already be in position to deal with that collapse. How many of you are sitting heavy in gold and silver and Bitcoin so that you're out of that third-party claim? Very few people, at least not in a position in which that if that did occur, that they would be able to transfer those particular assets that are outside of that third-party financial claim in order to transfer it over into another asset like property. That is a very difficult thing to do during a collapse of the entire system. Like, I can't even imagine what that would look like. But that's what you would have to anticipate in order for it to be an equal playing field for everybody. Other than that, it's going to be more separation between the rich and the poor as the wedge gets driven even further. Think about some of the things that they are trying to do in order to provide like an environment in which that people would be able to acquire a house. Think about some of the things, like we talked about this a little bit in yesterday's video, members only live stream video that we did, which was an excellent one. If you haven't become a member of the channel, I really suggest you become a member of the channel. It's $1 a month. You'll have access to all kinds of member only videos, including the one we did yesterday, talking very deeply about the lumber market and what's going on there. But we learned in yesterday's video, like Harris has come up with a suggestion for trying to provide an environment in which that people who can't afford houses or have never been able to have a house, like their family never had it, they've never had it, she thought of this idea, or has this idea, that providing a $25,000 grant to those people would all of a sudden provide the ability for them to get into a house. And now what I think is like, okay, so you have a supply-demand imbalance taking place. You have a huge demand for houses that people really can't afford, and regardless if they can afford it or not, it's not like they don't demand a house. They still want it, whether they can afford it or not, and the supply is very limited. So what you're going to do is provide grants to the demand, which increases the demand. That helps. I'm sorry, I miss it. I'm just an uneducated economist, but I'm pretty sure supply and demand imbalancing, being like economics 101, says that if you increase demand, you're going to throw the supply even more out of whack, which drives the prices up even further. Now, again, like, this is helping. I'm missing it. See, you can't fix this situation. The problem is much deeper and much further rooted than anything that any politician could ever possibly change. The circumstances that we are now facing has been in progress for hundreds of years. Decades ago, they made a decision to keep it going. We are now facing an ever-increasing bigger wedge between the rich and the poor. And the older you get and the further you are under that wedge, the harder it is that you are going to have to face it. The harder the facts you have to face that you are not going to be able to obtain that property in the traditional fashion, right? It's just best to understand it. Take a look at the TikTok video that I left down in the description here. My sister actually asked me about this. This girl is in finance in this TikTok video, and she misses it. Like, she gets it in the beginning. right? She talks about like uncertainty in the market and how when there's uncertain times, people have a tendency to move into treasuries. And if people move into treasuries, the prices move up and the yields come down. And so she's suggesting that the uncertainty that is going to be created within the economy out there is going to lower interest rates, which is actually a good thing. Like, you think about it, it's uncertain times. That's an economic event taking place that is now have people going, I don't want to participate in the economy. I'm looking for a safe haven. And that is now driving the yields down on the bond market, which appears to be like a good thing because lower yield or lower interest rates then makes the capability of the consumer out there to be more prevalent. But it's happening because people are uncertain about the economic future. You see the problem here, right? Now, she goes on to talk about how the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell has made the statement that they are not looking, or that they may not be waiting to 2% to change interest rates. Now, I think about that statement. Anybody who has been following this channel and understanding the monetary policy from the Federal Reserve's own words, and this is one of the things that we try to cover constantly on this channel, is the monetary policy, but we learned that the Federal Reserve doesn't go for a 2% target. They're going for a 2% average inflation rate over time. And that means that appropriate monetary policy at times, and including today, right? Because we learned this from Michelle Bowman's speech just a few months ago and through the congressional hearings, that appropriate monetary policy is seeking to achieve inflation that is moderately above 2% for some time. Think about the statement that Jerome Powell said, we may not wait till 2% to cut rates. They never were waiting to 2% to cut rates. That was never the plan, ever. And for him to come out and say that is literally like throwing hot air out there. It doesn't make any difference to anything out there because his statement was the same statement that he has been stating for 4 years. That's important to understand. See, people take this information as if it's new. Oh, they're not going to do like they're going to. No. They never intended on cutting rates once they got to 2% because 2% target doesn't exist. It's a 2% average inflation rate over time, which means that they may never ever have inflation at 2%. They could either be running at 1% or 3% the entire time and averaging 2%. Never once ever achieving a 2% target. That's important to understand because that's the way the Federal Reserve is looking at it. Right? People who are like, this young lady in this TikTok video, the way she's describing it is the way that 99.9% of Americans see it, and it is inaccurate. She is talking about people who are planning on refinancing into the future to take advantage of the dropping interest rates, and that very well could not occur. It very well may not. And I'm not trying to be predictive of the Federal Reserve's monetary policy, especially when it comes to interest rate adjustments. But the things that we have learned on this channel over the last few years is that interest rate adjustments don't work. The talking about it does, right? The forward guidance, the signaling, the jawboning, the credible threats, that is what guides the markets. And people believing that the Federal Reserve is going to be cutting interest rates going into the future stimulates the market. It eases financial conditions. People were expecting, knew that once the interest rates went up, home prices would come down. I was one of those people. I believed that. When I went to buy my house, that was my biggest concern, is that I am going to pick this house up. It's at 3 1/8% interest on the loan. And once those interest rates move up to 6, 7, 8%, whatever they go to, you're going to see the property values collapse. And that's my biggest concern, is that I was going to be underwater. It did not happen that way. Not even close. The biggest problem? Inventory. Inventory was limited. It's been limited. It is staying limited. And that is the major problem that most people did not anticipate when it came to house prices staying elevated or not coming down, is that they didn't anticipate that people were going to remain in their home and that the home builder was not going to jump in and start new construction. Those were not prevalent within the narrative. People did not anticipate that. But that is what has occurred, and that is now what's limiting the amount of homes out there for sale. And when you see the interest rates elevated and the wages don't keep up, then the separation between the rich and the poor grow ever increasingly more. We were supposed to fix this problem, right? They were supposed to have done stuff within the government to try and prevent this outcome from taking place. They didn't do that. The inequality can only go one way. More inequality. Anything other than that, everybody suffers the consequences of falling into a depressive environment, economic environment. All right? And it's not like I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not trying to say it needs to be one way or the other. I'm just observing it for what it is and the reality of the situation of it. I'm not trying to say, hey, we need to keep this fiat currency system going. I'm ready to go back to a gold standard. Hell, let's do Bitcoin. I don't care. I'm ready for anything. I mean, I've thought about it. I feel like I've prepared myself. I don't know if I've prepared myself enough, right? But I feel like I've at least thought about it enough that I would be able to conduct myself in that sort of environment. I don't think that 99% of the people out there have even considered what it would be like to be in that sort of environment. People talk about, oh, we need to go back to the gold standard, but do they really know what that would look like? Do they realize that loans would no longer be just prevalent for anybody to go out and get out there? And that there would literally just be two classes of people, those who have and have not, very much like what we are experiencing today. It's like, I'm cool with it. Like, I'm cool with that sort of thing. Like, I understand what it is. Most people don't. They won't understand why it is that the government isn't stepping up to help, because they just don't have the capabilities of doing it if they're stuck at a gold standard. I'm cool with it. I mean, I'm totally cool with that. Most people won't be. They will flip out, and you will see the government reacting to it. All right. Thank you all for being here. We're 15 minutes into this video. That's probably enough. Let's go and talk about some of the things that you guys are talking about. Brody says, hey, hit the like button on the way into the stream. Please, everybody, because that will make the YouTube share it more widely so we get more interesting questions in here. Yes, absolutely do hit that like button. We got 260 people watching. With 74 likes, we can definitely have it up to 150 likes here before the end of the stream. All right. Can't cope, don't mope, buy crypto. Is that, cryptope? Hey, Brody. Hey, hi. Hey, everyone. Howdy, Simon. How are the cars? How are the cars you have? Well, all my cars are good. Uneducated Entrepreneur. I love the name. All right. Everyone like immediately. Yes, please do. Step one, find veteran girlfriend. Step one, find veteran girlfriend. Step two, have her buy house. All right, I'm reading the essay by Cantillon now, ready about 30 pages yesterday. Right on. Yeah, you're going to really enjoy it. The first part of the essay, it's pretty good talking about it, but really I think it's most exciting when you get into part two, especially when you get into part two, chapters 6, 7, and 8, the increase and decrease of money to the state. Those are by far my favorite chapters of this book, and I'm sure that you'll be looking forward to reading it. Life flight going by. All right, let's go check out the super chat here. All right, super chat. All right, ham sandwich. I love it. Thank you so much for the $1.99. So we should plan on building our own homes. Yes, if you can build your own home, I would definitely suggest on planning on doing that, because that's probably going to be your best way. If you have the ability to do it, if you have the land, if you have the skills, if that's the situation that you are in, I think that's going to be your best bet. Now, when I say how houses are unobtainable, what I'm saying is that you are not going to be able to get it in the traditional fashion. That's just that you have to understand that. It's not like it's unable or you're incapable of doing it, right? The capability is being there. You just have to understand you're going to have a different strategy to get there. Whether it's working a second job in order to acquire that 38% down payment so that your regular job can make the payments. If it's something like that, if it's house hacking, which basically means getting into a house, but then have somebody else rent the house out and have somebody else make the payments while you live in the garage, or you live in the shop or an RV on the property or something like that, right? House hacking into it, teaming up with other people. This is, I mean, All Nighter is doing that right now in Indiana. So there's like, there's a ways of being able to acquire a home or acquire real estate, or at least get into the real estate game, maybe not fully yourself, but with other people. But once you have stepped in, now you're on the right side of the wedge, right? I mean, you might be at the very tip, at the very beginning of it, but you're on the right side of it. And so as time goes on, if you can maintain keeping those properties up, or adding more property, or teaming up with more people, this is how you're going to be able to acquire it, considering that you may not be financially like in the position in which that getting into a house on your own would be the case, right? Just know that it's not like people are I'm gonna work hard and save and get into a house. Okay, good luck, bro. Right? Good luck with that one. That was a difficult road to go down. All right, let's move on. I'm retired. My daughter can't get any hours. Duplex, there you go. Duplexes, another excellent way. If you can get into a duplex, rent half of it out. That way your payment, like you might even be able to get to make the whole payment, but then your payment on your side of it may be far less than if you were trying to get a house on your own, right? That's an excellent point. Duplexes, or even, multi-residential units. All right, buying some dirt, easy. Yeah. I believe soon states are making billions. All right, let's see here. You can buy rural high desert land very cheap, but have to drill a well and put septic. Also have to be okay being very isolated, low as 1,000 per acre. And see, that's the problem. Like most people are not independently wealthy or have a remote capability of earning money, right? Or the capability of earning money remotely. There we go. So you have to have a job, or you have to have a business, which means that you have to be in an environment in which that the flow of money is circulating around, right? Like if money is stagnant, you're in an area in which that nobody really has money, nobody's really doing business, nobody's really buying stuff. You're going to have a hard time doing business, right? You're going to have a hard time earning a decent wage. You're going to have a hard time living in that area. So even though it might be cheap, you still may not be able to afford it because the wages in that area still aren't high enough to acquire that land and make it useful. I think about the wages that we earn here in my area. They're quite high. Like, I mean, there's some decent wages that you can earn here, but the average house is also $400,000 or more, probably $500,000. In fact, I'm sure of it. It's probably 500,000 plus, going up to $1 million, whatever. Like the cheaper houses are down at 400,000. Those wages still aren't enough. You can't, it's very much like a cheap wage in a cheaper area. It just probably wouldn't be enough. And it's the unfortunate consequences. Now, if you can earn money or have money and then go to those other locations and hang out there, yeah, now you got it going on. You got something that you can work with. But most people have to figure out what it is that they need to do in that area in order to earn money, and those wages just don't keep up, right? It's just not enough. All right. What are your thoughts on manufactured homes? I mean, I think manufactured homes, I think that's probably a great way of creating dwellings for people to live in. But as far as like investments and, creating like, land and putting a mobile home on it, and then having that land value be as much as the investment it took to get into it, I don't know if that's necessarily a profitable situation. I feel that if it was, then more people would be doing it. I mean, is it a possibility? I think that's very, very much a possibility. In fact, I think there's a lot of areas in the country that are probably doing something very, very much like that. But is it so much so that the investment community will then start providing enough dwellings out there for the profit that you're going to get from it? Like, that's what you have to think. I mean, most people don't really look at it from that stance. Like, they think about it, well, the government should do something. Well, okay, the government should do something, but then it taxes, it charges, it does it inefficiently, and never works out the way it's supposed to, right? So there's a problem with that. If you let the free market take care of business, they do stuff very efficiently. They do it profitably. They do, like, everything is better when it's the free market that's taking care of business. How do you get the free market to provide dwellings for people? Well, it has to be a profitable situation for them. If it's profitable, they'll just naturally do it on their own, right? You don't have to encourage them or anything, right? It's just like, that's the way it would be. But if the free market doesn't see that naturally occurring within it, and that it's forcefully done through government subsidies or something of that nature, well, then it takes ever increasing amounts of government effort in order to make that, or in order to maintain that. You see where I'm kind of getting at? It's like if it was a realistic situation, and it would be taking place already. And that's like important to understand about it, is that the free market, if they could manufacture homes, put them on land and rent them out or sell them for a profit, it would just happen. All right. I think people don't buy manufactured because of the stigma. I think large companies building manufactured homes might be a good solution to the lack of housing. Yeah, I agree. I agree with both those statements. Everything is not possible thanks to all regulations by the municipalities, is like they need their poor in poverty. No, and see, that's part of the, and I'm not trying to knock your statement there, Santi's Earth Bear projects. I'm not trying to knock, but that's actually what you're describing is the Cantillon effect, right? It's not something you blame. It's something you recognize for what it is. Okay? You should try buying this book, right? You don't have to buy the book. You can get it for free at the Mises Institute. But there's a link down in the description to an Amazon affiliate link where you can go and click on that and, purchase this book. It is so, once you have internalized that information, you will recognize, you'll see it out there. You'll be like, oh, this, very much like you were saying, like, they're trying to keep the poor in poverty. They're not trying to keep the poor in poverty. It's just the naturally occurring circumstances of having ever increasing amounts of new money coming in, driving the wedge ever deeper, separating the rich from the poor. Like, it's not done on purpose, right? Now, if it's done on purpose, it's because people have worked hard, right? They've earned and saved. With that earnings and savings, they want to increase their standard of living, because anybody who's worked hard wants to enjoy that hard work. Right? They don't want to sit there and think, okay, I've worked hard, now I'm not going to enjoy it. Nobody does that. Everybody wants to enjoy it, right? So as they start to enjoy that money, it starts driving out the domestic manufacturers and driving in ever increasing amounts of foreign production, which separates the rich from the poor. Understand it, that's what's going on. It's not done on purpose. It's not greed. I mean, greed is part of the symptoms of it, but it's a natural human occurrence that happens when new money flows in. People earn the money and then want to enjoy it. Enjoying the new money is the problem, right? It's this, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I want to enjoy the money. I wouldn't go and earn a bunch of money not to enjoy it, right? I mean, it would be silly to think. But it's also the same human instincts that has taken place to enjoy that money, yeah, that is creating the problems that we are facing. And because people want to work hard and enjoy the money and not blame themselves for creating a bad economy out there through their luxurious purchases and bringing in the foreign production, they don't want to blame themselves, so instead they blame the politicians who say that they can fix it. So yeah, go ahead and blame them, because they're actually giving you a line of crap by saying that they can give you an option that will alleviate the problem. They're lying. It's wrong. They can't. They can't change what Cantillon was describing from hundreds of years ago, because it's an underlying economic force. It's a natural human condition that we are facing. We have to understand it on this level. That way we stop blaming other people. We stop blaming the situation. We understand it for what it is, why it's occurring, and then we readjust what it is that we are doing for our position, so that we can now see it in a fashion that 99% of the people won't, and then we can now move ourselves onto the other side of the wedge. It's very important to understand it that fashion. I don't care what position you're in. I don't care how much in debt you are. I don't care how drunk you are, all right? I was in a horrible position. 40 years old, no money, $20,000 in debt, broken down vehicle, drunk, right? Nothing, had nothing going on, no anything other than being able to maintain my job, right? And that was at 40 years old, right? I'm going to turn 48 this week, and I have completely changed everything around. And now understanding a lot of this economic information, right? Just intuitively I started intuitively making the right decisions. I didn't even think about why I was doing it. It was just occurring that way. Okay? And you can too. Like, everybody can do this. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You don't have to have a YouTube channel. You could be starting your own business. You can be doing affiliate sales. You can be doing all kinds of stuff out there to be earning extra money, or be extra money, whatever extra money means, the money beyond all the money you already have. Like, there's extra, right? But you can be earning additional wages that will then put you in a position that is so unique from everybody else out there. Now you might have the chance to become one of the property owners and get yourself on the other side of the wedge, right? Or become the capitalist, one of the two, right? I mean, property ownership is the easiest way to do it. Becoming a capitalist is very difficult. You have to be very aware of what it is that you are investing into, how you get those returns, who you're giving your money to, what businesses that are out there. Very difficult. Property is very simple. It's complicated in a lot of ways, but it is very simple as far as the vision that you have towards it, right? Get the property, make it look better. That's it, right? I mean, that's like, it's very straightforward. All right, moving on. What time is it? All righty, guys, I got a few more minutes here. We can probably go another 15. All right, cruise down here to the bottom. What do you think about autocracy as a means to solve the new money problem? What is that? Autocracy? I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding it. I don't know if you can reinvent the wheel, right? I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can make transactions take place, but can you really reinvent the wheel? Either you have one or two types of currency, a fixed currency supply or a fiat currency supply. Which one is it going to be? All right. And if you have a fixed currency, then you're going to have issues with like Gresham's law and Cantillon effect. And if you have fiat currency, you're going to have the issues with the separation between the rich and the poor, the inequality issues and, the problems like that. So no matter what kind of currency you have, there's only those two, right? And different ways of presenting them. But there's really nothing else out there, right? Either a fixed currency supply or a fiat currency supply, right? And they both have their issues. Whatever one you want to use, I'm cool with it. Like, again, I've studied so much of this stuff that, like, whatever environment you want to be in, I'll jump into that, sure, whatever it is. But it doesn't fix the system. It doesn't fix the problems. Adjusted for inflation, silver stackers have been obliterated. I somewhat agree, and that's why I don't buy silver as a protection from inflation. Like, whoever buys it saying that this will protect you from inflation, I've been buying silver for, like, I don't know, 15, 16, almost 17 years, 18 years. I'm going on 20 years. And I have yet to have an experience in which that silver had protected me from inflation. Never once, not one single time has it ever protected me from inflation. I don't even think about it being that as an option. But what it has done is provided one hell of an insurance policy. When I was broke, in debt, drunk, all that other stuff, and my car broke down, I had no money, no way of getting a loan, like nothing. But I did have a box of silver. And I called my buddy up and I was like, dude, do you have that Tahoe for sale still? And he's like, you know it. I said, will you take silver? And he says, oh yeah, I will. I said, will you drive it up here? And he says, I'll be up there in a few minutes. Drove the Tahoe up, gives me the title. I give him 165 ounces and I had wheels again. And I thought, man, I will never be without silver again. It is by far the most important thing that you could ever have in your possession. It keeps you out of that third-party claim. It gives you the ability to sleep at night. It saves you from situations like I was facing. Right? It's very, very, very important to have. Right? But to buy it to protect yourself from inflation? No. To buy it as an investment, like you're going to make money off of it? No. That's not what it is. It's an insurance policy, and I don't look at it as anything else other than that. Like, I literally don't. I don't even think about, like, how much money it is or anything like that. I don't. All right, what time is it? Oh, gosh, guys, we're getting towards the end here. All right, Father, no, that's what Scripture calls love of money, lovers of pleasure, more than loves of God. All right, I thought silver and gold was meant for something that leaves the country bad? Was meant for something that leaves the country bad. I'm not sure what that is. Agreed. Housing prices are collapsing and will continue to collapse. They are not, dude. Go and look at there might be areas in which that you are finding home prices coming down. I agree. All right. But go and take a look at the median price of homes. They have gone up. Right? The median price of a home is now at 427,000, 426,900 or something. $427,000. Right? That's what the median price home is. Now, think about it for just a minute. If you have home sales that have dropped dramatically, if you have less mortgages being issued, that is a housing collapse. That is the housing collapse taking place, is the transactions. Home transactions are collapsing. Prices are not. Why? Because there's not enough inventory. Why isn't there enough inventory? Because people aren't selling. And why aren't people selling? Because they can't get another home. And so they're going to stay in that home. And if home builders do not see the buyer traffic coming, why would they provide a product? Right? So now you have very limited inventory, and this is the case that we are going to find going into the future. If you want foreclosures to be significant, not just, oh, I've read a report that there was a 100% increase in foreclosures. That doesn't matter. Right? Percentages based off of a particular number that is very low does not give you a good realistic idea of where we are on foreclosures. Think about the amount of homes that are underwater. That is important to remember, because homes that are underwater are the ones that get foreclosed on. If it's not underwater, then just sell it. Right? Just sell it. That's it. You can lower the price until you finally get to the point that what you owe on it, and then you'll go underwater. But if it's not underwater, then you can just sell the house. It won't go into foreclosure. There is less homes underwater today than there was prior to the pandemic. Very important to understand. The housing market is collapsing. It's collapsing in transactions, not in prices. That's there is a housing crisis taking place. There's a housing collapse taking place. But you have to recognize for what it is. It's not in pricing, it's in transactions. All right. I'm just about done here, guys. All right. Where are all the newcomers going to live? I don't know. Where are they going to live? Like, that is a very good question. It's not something, like, here's the thing. It's not up to us to try and figure out where it is that they are going to live. It's up to us to figure out what it is that we need to do, understanding that there is going to be issues with these people and that they're not going to have a place to live. Right? I don't know what it is that people are anticipating the government to do, but they can't help you. All right, it's not liquid when the banks don't give mortgages to just everyone because the rates are low. You can't just sell it. Yeah, no, what I am saying... Okay, you're right. You can't just sell. What I am saying is that if you have a house that is underwater, now you have a problem, right? Your foreclosure, all that other stuff. But if the house isn't underwater, then you don't have an issue with foreclosures, right? This is like, you could have an issue with the foreclosure if you let it go that far, right? But obviously, if you could sell it for less than you would so that you could get out from the foreclosure event, short selling the home or something of that nature. If the house is valued much higher than that, then you're most likely not going to be in that position in which that you have to do a short sale. This is the condition in which that I'm telling you is like happening out there. Like, we can wish and hope and dream that it's going to be a situation in which that everybody's going to lose their house and all the poor people out there who can't afford a house will be able to just move into a house. Like, is there any time in history that that ever occurred? Like, I understand during the great financial crisis that there was a lot of ability for people to get into cheaper houses, but guess what? They had the ability to do it. Most people didn't, right? Most people, by the time that situation occurred, found themselves in a situation in which that they just didn't have the ability to get into the house, even though they wished they could because the price was perfect for them. Anticipating an environment that is going to be perfect for you is most likely not going to happen. You have to create the perfectness inside of your abilities, considering the environment that you're in. That's the only way to go about it. But sitting and hoping and waiting and dreaming that there's going to be a moment in time in which that they are going to figure it out isn't going to happen. That's not the way it goes down, and it's not going to. All right, I would love to keep going out here because I think this is a really good topic. I think it's very interesting to kind of break it all down to try and understand what it is that's taking place out there. I think this book is incredibly important to understand, especially those 3 chapters, the increase and decrease of money to the state. Again, I left a link down in the description for you guys so that you can go and buy the book yourself. I get a little commission. It's an Amazon affiliate link. Even if you don't buy the book from that Amazon affiliate link, by clicking on that link and going and purchasing anything you want, I will get a little commission off of anything that you buy from Amazon just by clicking on that link. So anything you put in the cart for the next 24 hours and then purchase within the next 30 days, the Uneducated Economist will get a little bit of commission for it. You don't have to buy the book online. You can go and get it for free at the Mises Institute. Just type in Cantillon essay on economic theory, right? And that's going to get you. You'll be able to find the link there at the Mises Institute, so you can go and read it. Very important stuff. And then again, consider joining the channel. The membership to the channel is now growing close to 1,000 members. Think about this for just a minute. 1,000 members have now found the value inside of the member-only videos where we break down the monetary discussions of the Federal Reserve. I'm talking like we take their speeches and break them down so that we can internalize the information. Even people who are just now getting into understanding macroeconomics, trying to understand monetary policy, get a huge advantage over most people out there when they follow these membership only videos, because what they are getting is information that is not being presented in the mainstream media. Nowhere out there do they get it. In fact, there is 2 different communications taking place. One to the mainstream media and then the other one to the central bankers. So the Federal Reserve actually has communications that sound very similar to that of the propagandized information going to the mainstream media, the corporate media, but it's communications going to the other central bankers out there. And that information is very, very unique. And literally 99.9% of the people are missing it. And that's one of the reasons why I find that the member-only videos that we do here on this channel are so important. They're important for you to not only understand for yourself so that you can make the right decisions, but also understand it for the fact that you will be able to recognize the propagandized information when it comes out. If you don't know about the Federal Reserve's communications first, then you will look at that propagandized information and believe it for the facts, right? There's a lot of information that sounds very similar, right? But it's not the same. And I think the biggest one that you could find out there is that 2% target. Like every single economist in the entire world out there, all over CNBC, all over Bloomberg, all over the Wall Street Journal, all over Time Magazine, all over USA Today, all over those publications, all of them talking about a 2% target and how, in a lot of ways, the Federal Reserve doesn't see anything other than a 2% target. That is completely delusional. That is wrong. The Federal Reserve is going for a 2% average inflation rate over time. This is something that we have discussed many times. We have shown plenty of evidence of it, plenty in their communications describing their monetary policies. And since we're the only ones who really seem to have internalized this and use this information then to come up with our strategies of how it is that we position ourselves, I think that this channel and the membership only is probably the only place that you're ever going to find that information. Now, if you want it for yourself, you can go and read hundreds and hundreds of speeches and documents from the Federal Reserve like I have over the last 15 years. Or you can just pay the $1 a month, $12 a year, $120 a decade to get hardcore information that I put a lot of work into. You have a community that is very knowledgeable. You can ask questions and opinions of many people out there who are very open in sharing their ideas and what it is that they feel is taking place from their view within the economy. Again, Having the discussion is the only way to figure this stuff out, to break this stuff down, to internalize it, to look at it from our working class point of view. A lot of times when this information is presented, it's presented from somebody who's making $100 million and or whatever, and they just don't relate, right? They don't understand what it is to live down here at the working class wages, having to wait 3 days to buy toilet paper and milk because that's how long it's going to take before you get paid again. Like, how many people understand that sort of life? Very few, and very few of them who are discussing monetary policy truly understand that sort of life either. This is what we're breaking down here. This is why we're doing it. All right. Okay, guys, this was a lot of fun, but I got to go back to work, all right, because I do have a day job that I have to go and be at. All right. You're very generous, Simon. Well, thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate you all. Thank you very much for becoming a member of the channel. Thank you for everybody who has been gifting memberships too. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up. Thank you everybody who has been gifting memberships. I find this to be one of the most unique things that I didn't anticipate happening for this channel, is that literally members are now spreading this information, like forcing the information out there to the people by gifting memberships to other people. It's like literally paying it forward. They were gifted memberships, and then in turn, they are taking and gifting memberships out there to other people. And it's just like, it's like growing on its own. I am just absolutely amazed by it. I couldn't be happier to see this community growing like it is. I mean, 1,000 members to the channel, it's just like, I can't wait to see it at 10,000 members. It's awesome, right? Okay, guys, I gotta go. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.